These are the 5 earliest signs that someone is emotionally pulling away from you when they show signs that they no longer love you. When someone stops loving you, what is the first thing that goes through their mind? The act of slamming doors, yelling, or requesting space is not necessarily the culprit. In actuality, it is typically a great deal quieter. In the beginning, there is a change that is almost imperceptible, and if you are not paying carefully, you could miss the initial signs, which are the same moments when their heart starts to move away from them. This film is not about drama, it is not about accusations, and it is most certainly not about guessing games, despite the fact that the words and routines remain precisely the same. It's all about being clear, simply because love tends to leave a trace behind after it fades away. Changes in behavior that are not immediately noticeable, even when their lips don't communicate the whole story. Emotional remoteness and withholding connection are what tell the real story. In this video, we are going to go over 5 indications that are not immediately obvious but are quite telling. These symptoms are typically the first ones to surface when someone no longer loves you. I'm not making any crazy guesses here. The emotional patterns that are observed in long-term relationships, marriages, and close partnerships serve as the basis for these psychological models. At the conclusion of this video, you will have a better understanding of what is genuine, what is significant, and what the next step that you might do could be. Stay until the very end because one of these indications, which is one that is sometimes overlooked, has the potential to completely transform the way you perceive your relationship. Sincerity is something that you deserve, not only from other people but also from yourself. In light of this, let us take a more in-depth look at the way in which love, when it begins to depart, virtually always begins to knock in the same modest ways first. A loss of curiosity is the first sign. The fact that someone stops being fascinated about your world is one of the earliest and most subtle indications that they no longer love you by that person. You might have been asked how your doctor's appointment went, what your grandchildren are doing, or how you've been sleeping recently. These questions could have been asked not too long ago. On the other hand, when you speak, they seldom blink their eyes at all. They do not ask any queries that are follow-up. It does not appear that they are engaged in the minor stories that each day brings about. There is more to this adjustment than just being distracted or busy. A dissociation of the emotions is at issue here. I would like to tell you about Edna and Paul, who have been married for almost 40 years. Edna used to relay every single detail to Paul. It seemed as if the roses had finally begun to bloom once more. Exactly what the dog of the neighbor had done. A mystery book that was causing her book group to become increasingly heated. Paul used to pay attention. Occasionally, he would laugh, nod, and make a quip here and there. However, at some point in time, it ceased to be the case. Every time she began a narrative, he would hardly look up from the television he was watching. In response, he would either grunt or not respond at all. Before she could even put a name to it, Edna sensed the heavy silence that existed between them. It wasn't just a lack of language that was the problem. There was a lack of interest in the matter. The way someone loves you is that they immerse themselves in your world. Their desire to comprehend you extends to even the most insignificant of matters. They are aware of your scheduled appointments. Their concern is for the things that have upset you this morning. As soon as they reach that caring period, they begin to emotionally withdraw. And this withdrawal is not typically accompanied by rage. That is accompanied by quiet. There is a kind of emotional void that can leave you feeling lonely, even while you are in a room with other people. This is the truth. By the way, it is not because you are uninteresting or because your stories have changed that people cease asking you question after question. It is because they no longer feel emotionally invested that they decide to stop. You are reduced to the status of background noise rather than the primary character in their day. That may sound harsh, but if you are beginning to feel as though your voice is no longer landing, it may be time to ask, when did people stop being curious about me? Your voice may not be landing anymore. The question is, why didn't I notice it earlier? Due to the fact that when someone no longer loves you, They do not always express their feelings. However, they demonstrate this by the fact that they no longer ask questions and that they no longer appear to be interested in hearing what others have to say. The second sign is a lack in patience. It is common for someone's patience to be the first thing to suffer when their love for another person begins to wane. The same things that used to make them smile, laugh, or gently correct them now appear to irritate them despite their previous behavior. You might be recounting a story that you have told before, or you might be asking a straightforward inquiry about the calendar or the groceries. And you might be met with a sigh, a brusque tone, or that chilly gaze that asks, "Why are you bothering me?" Understanding used to feel like walking on eggshells, but now it feels like walking on eggshells. Think about someone like Helen, who was 76 years old and had always been a little forgetful. Take a moment to think about her. Richard, her spouse, would make fun of her in a kind manner about it. In addition to assisting her in locating her glasses, he would also tell her, for the 5th time, where she had left her phone. They incorporated it into their beat. But after that, it changed. It was all of a sudden that Richard began yelling at her. He would either roll his eyes or murmur something beneath his breath. There was a time when she sought for assistance in connecting into her online banking account. And he simply responded by saying, "You need to figure it out on your own." That was a moment that Helen did not forget. It was not because it was a dramatic event, but rather because it was so dissimilar to how he had been in the past. Those who are in love are able to extend grace to others. They are aware of your peculiarities, your routines, and your vulnerable areas, and they navigate them with care. However, as love begins to wane, even the most insignificant requests begin to feel like demands to them. The shift is not obvious, but it is significant. Previously, there was an atmosphere of understanding, however. There is now resistance. Moreover, it is not about the mistakes that you made. It's about how they've started emotionally withdrawing from you. And patience is frequently the first thread that breaks in relation to them. It is possible that you will begin to question your sanity. Am I being overly dependent on others? Are my expectations too high? But the reality is that it is not about having less requirements. This pertains to the manner in which their willingness to be there for you has shifted. The tone of their voice, the manner in which they interrupt, the eye rolls that you catch, and even the heavy pause that follows a completely acceptable inquiry are all indicators that they are no longer emotionally engaged in the conversation. That shift should not be ignored. It's not only irritability or stress related. It's possible that this is a sign that their heart is no longer in the same place it was before. Additionally, if you are continually experiencing the sensation that you are a nuisance rather than a partner, this is something that you certainly need to accept. I would appreciate it if you could use the second comment section below to let me know that you are continuing viewing this video and that you are finding these insights to be helpful. I strongly suggest that you subscribe to the channel and activate the bell if you have not already done so. This will ensure that you do not miss any videos. With your assistance, we are able to continue producing high-quality content that will both inform and inspire you. Now, let's proceed with our plans. Deficit in time spent together is the third sign. As soon as love starts to fade away, time immediately begins to fade away beside it. It is not time in the sense of hours or days on a calendar, rather. It is the kind of time that has the ambiance of being chosen, important, and shared. Over time, you will observe that they will no longer make arrangements with you. They are not going to do it because they are busy, rather. They do not want to. In the past, they would sit next to you while you watched your favorite shows, or they would join you on the porch in the evening. They are currently loitering in other rooms. They leave the house more frequently without first inquiring as to whether or not you would like to accompany them. Moreover, when they do remain, their bodies are present, but their attentiveness is not as present. Imagine someone like Ray, who was 68 years old and cherished the routine he shared with his wife Linda in the morning. Over the course of many years, they would chat about the weather, the news, or simply sit in silence while they sipped coffee side by side at the kitchen table. No matter what they said, it was irrelevant. Simply being present was the point. Gradually, however, that shifted. In order to get her exercise, Linda began getting up earlier and going for long walks by herself. The table was desolate, and the coffee had already been prepared. According to her, she required some time for herself. Ray is aware of this. As the situation continued to occur on a daily basis, he began to experience feelings of being a visitor in his own marriage. Time is a form of love, and when someone loves you, they make time for you since time is a loving gesture. However, when that love gets weaker, so does their desire to be close to one another. More often than not, they will not explain it. They'll claim that they're exhausted. They'll say that they have errands to run. They won't make any kind of statement. But the reality is that individuals do make time for the things that are important to them. In addition, if you notice that you are constantly by yourself, even when they are in the same house, it is possible that this is not a coincidence. They stop inviting you to participate in low-key activities. There is no question about how your day is going to go. It is then that they begin to say, "You go ahead," or "I'll just stay here." Also, the distance widens with each decision that is made in silence. There is no need for a particularly heated argument or a theatrical declaration. A sufficient number of mornings apart, a sufficient number of dinners in which you eat alone, and a sufficient number of nights in which they fall asleep with their back turned are all that are required. In a relationship that was once shared, if you are experiencing feelings of being left behind, you should not dismiss such feelings. That is because when someone no longer loves you, the amount of time they spend with you does not decrease, rather, it is taken away. This kind of silence is much more powerful than any words that could ever be spoken. Emotional withholding is the fourth red flag. One day, someone will stop what they are doing and let you in, not only into their day, but also into their inner world. This moment will typically occur slowly and silently. In the past, you were able to listen to their concerns, their hopes, and their ideas regarding life, work, and family. However, it appears as though they are concealing their identity. They respond with comments concerning the surface level. Things like, "It's fine," or "Don't worry about it," or what they talk about. You are able to recognize that something is different. There is something that is being concealed behind glass doors. Where is the most uncomfortable aspect about it? There is no longer a sense that they are a secure location. For example, let's talk about Gloria, who is 71 years old. Samuel, her companion, had never been secretive of his feelings toward her. It was after a lengthy phone discussion with his brother that he would rant. In the days leading up to his knee surgery, he would disclose his anxieties to others. In the past, he even referred to her as his closest friend. On the other hand, that has shifted throughout the course of the past year. Gloria did not learn that his cousin had passed away until a week after the events that transpired. In response to her inquiry as to why he hadn't informed her, he simply stated, "I didn't want to burden you." However, she was aware that this was not the cause. Carrying it by himself was a more convenient option for him than inviting her inside. This change does not occur automatically overnight. On the other hand, when someone shows that they no longer love you, they begin to close the emotional doors. They do continue to chat, but not about the things that are important, in no way related to the truth. Rather than feeling like a partner, you start to feel more like a roommate. Without your input, the most important choices are decided. The thoughts that you used to discuss with them while you were eating dinner are now quietly lingering in their minds. And unless you feel the gap widening, you won't even know what you're missing until it's too late. Not only do people stop talking to you, but they also stop trusting you with their private information. And that is more painful than being silent. Mostly due to the fact that it indicates that they no longer consider you to be the person they turn to when life becomes difficult or unclear. Perhaps they are still kind to you, continue to clean the dishes, and continue to sit next to you at church. It is no longer warm. However, The proximity is no longer present. And whenever you make an effort to reach for it, inquire about what is wrong, or make an effort to connect with them, they pull back. Avoidance, rather than rage, is the most common response. People think that I'm just exhausted. In such case, you would not comprehend. In reality, however, what they are trying to convey is that I have already turned inside. I've already started to turn off my connection. I would appreciate it if you could use the 4th comment section below to let me know that you are continuing viewing this video and that you are finding these insights to be helpful. I strongly suggest that you subscribe to the channel and activate the bell if you have not already done so. This will ensure that you do not miss any videos. With your assistance, we are able to continue producing high-quality content that will both inform and inspire you. Now, let's proceed with our plans. For the 5th sign, a physical withdrawal. Whenever there is a lessening of emotional intimacy, the body frequently follows suit. You will observe a decrease in the number of hugs, eye contact, and lingering touches on the arm, as well as the absence of a kiss on the forehead for no apparent reason. Even when they are sitting on the couch together, it begins to feel more like two people sharing space than a connection between them. For many couples, the unspoken love that exists between them is maintained by physical proximity. Therefore, when that is no longer present, it does not merely feel lonely. One gets the impression that the love has taken a step back physically. Consider Martin and Alice, who have been married for 45 years. They were naturally loving toward one another for the majority of their lives. Whether they were walking hand in hand or rubbing each other's shoulders at the end of a long day, Alice was always the one that Martin would draw in for a short kiss before going to bed. Something, however, shifted after he retired from his position. It was as if he became more distant and quiet. On the bed, he would turn his back. When she attempted to lay her hand on his knee while he was watching television, he disregarded her hand and shrugged it off, in the same way that he stopped initiating any form of touch. Alice gradually stopped reaching out to him. It wasn't because she didn't love him, rather, it was because she was at a loss for where she stood from that point on. Touch is a form of communication that can be used. It indicates that I am present. I am concerned. Even now, I will pick you. Additionally, when someone no longer loves you, they will cease using that phrase around you. They steer clear of it. They move away from you. It is in public that they refrain from reaching for your hand. When you lean in for a kiss, they display a little flinching motion. It is not overt, but it has a profound impact. As the situation continues to worsen, it becomes increasingly difficult to close that gap, at least not all of the time. It is not about romance or passion. It is about being present, receiving confirmation, and having the confidence that you are still needed, even when you are silent. When something is no longer present, it is simple to doubt everything and to wonder if you have performed an error in judgment. On the other hand, it is not always about what you did. It is about how they feel and how they no longer feel emotionally or physically drawn to you. It is about all of these things. If you have seen that the warmth in the room disappears when they enter, or if your hugs feel more like polite gestures than genuine connection, it may be time to confront what is no longer being communicated. Mostly due to the fact that the body is aware when someone stops loving you. Moreover, it will begin displaying the distances to you one at a time. Lastly, some thoughts. Now that you have heard these 5 indicators, you should take some time to think about them in peace. Who knows? Maybe one of them stood out. Perhaps each and every one of them did. Not only is it vital to recognize the indicators, but it is also important to recognize what they represent for you or your situation. Mainly due to the fact that when love starts to fade, we frequently feel it in our gut before we become aware of it through words or acts. In spite of this, we have doubts about ourselves. We reduce a lot. Our internal dialogue tells us not to overreact. However, the reality is that emotional detachment always leaves traces behind, most notably in the form of silence, avoidance, and a diminishing sense of being known. If you encountered that change, And if you have been questioning whether or not what you are experiencing is genuine, it is most likely that it is. On top of that, you are not making stuff up. Feeling the difference between being chosen and being tolerated is what you are experiencing. It would be irresponsible to disregard that. That is something that should be investigated with sincerity, bravery, and compassion for both yourself and the relationship under consideration. None of this indicates that there is no longer any love in the world or that problems cannot be fixed. Nevertheless, the first step is to always have clear vision. Because once you recognize the patterns, you will no longer be able to blame yourself for them. You can free yourself from the burden of a connection that is only one-sided. Additionally, you can begin to ask the appropriate questions. Do I have a sense of emotional security here? Have I been given the utmost priority? Is it still the case that I am important? Keep in mind that your own tranquility is equally as important as the comfort of anyone else. Even while it may be unpleasant to acknowledge that the love you have for someone is waning, it is much more terrible to continue to pretend that it isn't. You deserve to be loved deeply. This is the kind of person who shows up, leans in, maintains curiosity, and continues to choose you day after day. We appreciate you being here with us today. It would be wonderful if you could get in touch with us. Please leave a comment below and tell us about one item you discovered today and how you intend to put it to use in your life right now. We place a high value on your opinions, so please do not be reluctant to share them with us. Our inspiration and encouragement are greatly increased as a result of reading your remarks. I would appreciate it if you would like, subscribe, and share this video if you found it to be informative and enjoyable. With your assistance, we are able to continue producing high-quality content that will both inform and inspire you. We appreciate you taking the time to watch, and we hope to see you in the future video.